The police followed the perpetrator. They surrounded the buildings and demanded to lay down their weapons and release the hostage. A sniper took the perpetrator at gunpoint, and he threatened to kill the hostage. The sniper was asked what the probability of a successful shot was, and he reported that it was no more than 10%. The protagonist said a good advice, namely to calm down, as the sniper will easily shoot him if he continues like this. The criminal told the protagonist to shut his mouth. The sniper told the group to move on to another plan as the criminal had figured them out. The protagonist again gave advice, namely that it is worth to hide in the building that would be easy to shoot from the assault group. The villain shouted and threatened the hero, but eventually they closed in the building. The police did not understand how their plan is so easily revealed, and decided not to risk, as the criminal had a very important thing. The villain looked out the window, and called the police a pack of dogs. He realized that the police have already found out about the thing that he has. The protagonist started teasing the criminal, saying that he was in big trouble. The enemy pointed a gun at the protagonist and told him to shut up. The protagonist asked the enemy to take a closer look at where they were. The criminal didn't understand what that was about, but when he looked closely, he saw a sign that said hospice. The protagonist explained that in this place people live for 2 months at most. The criminal was angry, and the protagonist explained that he had nothing to fear, as he would die soon. The hero asked what kind of valuable thing makes the police do that. The criminal tried to turn around, but the hero grabbed a pillow and threw it right in his face, then instantly was near the enemy and grabbed his hand, and then struck a fairly strong blow to the jaw of the man, then grabbed the arm of the enemy, and a little pulling threw him to the ground, from which he could not even move. The protagonist said that he had little time left to live, and the criminal took 7 minutes from him. The hero found an interesting thing inside the criminal's jacket. The man began to ask to return this thing to him, but the hero not only did not listen to the enemy, but also opened that thing. A little time later his body was covered with an incomprehensible aura. The criminal was disappointed and devastated, and the hero heard a voice that set a record of time travel. The man started yelling that because the hero had just accepted the contract of another world, he would be the end of him. The protagonist kicked the man's head with his foot and said that he was finished. Sitting down, the hero picked up the weapon and said that if the man didn't say everything about this thing, he would die. The terrified criminal said he would tell everything. In the year 2050, a mystical meteor shower changed the world in an incredible way. After it, ordinary people could undergo trials in another world, but they could only return to reality by completing the trials. As a reward, one could receive the riches of the other world, even a cure for all diseases. The appearance of the other world shook the world very much, as people began to attack travelers in an effort to find out a way to get to the other world. After many events, people learned that the key to travel is the account of another world. On the body of people who have the account appears a mark. They move within a quarter of an hour. Later these people began to be called travelers. Time passed. The room burst into the special forces, but looking closely they were shocked, as the criminal was sitting tied on a chair. The protagonist was notified that the journey would begin in a minute. The protagonist learned that no matter how much time he spent in another world, in reality, it would be an instant. When traveling, no items could be taken, only clothes. The protagonist saw that the criminal was taken away by the police, and was sure that they would not touch him for the time being. According to the criminal, the protagonist realized that the ordeal was quite simple, more like some kind of game. The protagonist decided to nail the whole thing, as it's possible to see something new. He has a couple months left anyway. The hero began to be scanned in order to create a character, and eventually the protagonist was moved to a public area, where he found himself among people like him. The system told him that he would be able to see the character's window, and he would only have to think about it. The hero looked around and marveled at the different world. He called up a character sheet where all the stats were incredibly low. So was the inventory. The main character had a paper level, which to him sounded very weak. The guy heard voices behind him. There was a man trying to sell a green level item, but people didn't believe him. The peddler started to tell them that it was a very rare green rank poison weapon. He told them that there were 4 levels of testing: paper, parallel, strong and brutal. No one passed the brutal one, but the others did. The peddler talked about how he stole this sword from the top 56 of the hate table, and said he would sell it for only 500 points. People immediately started raising their bids, trying to be the first to get the sword for themselves. The peddler was already counting the money he had earned from the newcomers. Suddenly an alarm sounded, and people were a little surprised. Everyone received a notification that a dangerous person had been detected trying to enter the zone. Law enforcement was dispatched. The court force in the safe zone is strong. They discovered the target, the number 1 criminal who had a hate table rating of 1. The protagonist became worried as he thought the guards were moving towards him. The merchant started to run away as he thought it was after him. The knight tensed his leg very hard and jumped with all his might. In the air he aimed his kick, and the peddler assumed that the protagonist was also a criminal as he was running away with him. The protagonist said that was nothing and asked where they could escape the chase. The system explained that the hero was in the index of criminals and was the first with 6 stars, so he should be killed on the spot. If he dies in this world, it will be in the real one. The merchant pointed to a portal and said that they could hide there. One of the knights was prepared before the fall. He made a very strong blow, which flew directly at the hero, and just before the collision, the hero managed to hide in the portal, and in the place of the hit, there was a huge explosion. At that time, the criminal was standing nearby. He was not happy that he had failed. The system explained to the hero that the ordeal on which he got to the brutal level, the reward is a treasure chest with purple level treasures. If he dies, then in life will be the same. The goal was to survive. The hero didn't realize the point that he could die in reality. At that time, the hero found himself in the middle of a scene where a commentator was talking about how they were looking for the perfect candidate for a guy who had just arrived. He called what was happening "Don't be afraid to die." The protagonist didn't understand, as it was said that no one took part in assignments of this level. Everyone looked at the main character, who came from the human dimension. The hero even started posing to the sounds of the audience. They called the hero beautiful and clapped for him. The commentator said that the confrontation would be very interesting and told about the sponsors of this event. The protagonist suggested that it was a blind date program. The protagonist remembered that he used to be called the arsonist of women's hearts. The guy was sorry that due to an injury, he didn't have the opportunity to date fanatics. The commentator decided to show the strength of the candidate, but to a big surprise, he turned out to be only paper level. The audience got even more fired up. It was the first time someone of such a low level appeared on this stage. The protagonist asked the system for an explanation of this strength level. The paper level was the weakest, followed by the parallel, strongest, and violent level, which was the strongest. The protagonist guessed that he was in a test that only the strongest could pass, and if he failed, he would die. The commentator promised that the new candidate will show the best death in the history of the program. The hero turned to the light bulb. He was surprised that he was called so and asked if it was to him. The protagonist said that the bulb would stop talking nonsense and already started dating blind. The commentator said that it was only his hologram and introduced the first girl. He stood in a funny pose, and behind his back the gate started to open, from which the girl number 1 came out. The girl turned out to be Ms. Delicate Red Lips, who looked more like a monster. She sent the main character an air kiss, and he was terrified of the girl with whom he would have to be on the test. The commentator said that the girl feels people's emotions. Also, she likes to ask about her beauty and then eat men. The main character closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He wrinkled his face and said that the girl was pretty. The The commentator started to introduce the second girl. Number 2 was Miss Slender Legs, very similar to Spider-Man. According to the commentator, she likes to lay eggs in men. The protagonist was asked for his opinion about the second contender. The protagonist showed the likes and said that the girl is just a beauty. The commentator said they had a great start and started introducing the third girl. The protagonist thought about how they shouldn't underestimate him. One hen came out of the gate and started to dig in. The third girl was Miss Beautiful Shapes. She is a butcher who has butchered 16 of her partners. The girl started screaming really hard, and the commentator called it a signature battle roar. The main character was shocked. He asked if it was definitely the girl. The challenger made a pitiful face, and she left the stage. The commentator asked the protagonist to refrain from such expressions in the future, or he would be excluded from the program. The protagonist realized that there are no normal girls in their program. The commentator said that the next girl was just to the hero's taste. She was a level above the cruel level. She was on par with the deadly sins of Miss Laziness. The protagonist said that sounded promising. The commentator asked for Ms. Day to come out, but she didn't show up. The commentator said that the girl had a day to show up, and she would be looking for a partner from home. The commentator said that the rules of the game require the hero to spend the whole day with each of the girls. The commentator asked the hero to go outside and spend time with the girls. At that time, there was a court hearing in the public area where the peddler justified that he had nothing to do with it. The guy said he had nothing to do with the perpetrator, namely the hero. The judge said they had investigated and found that to be true. Torgash breathed a sigh of relief. But the judge accused the guy of other crimes of deceiving other people, and he was given 200 hate points and sent into exile to Hate City. The guy was taken by his hood and begged the guards to stop. The man asked the judge if they should continue their search for the man who is the #1 criminal. The judge told him that the hero would die as he was caught in a brutal level of the trial. At that time, in the territory of the trial Don't Be Afraid of Death, Miss Forms was cutting up a dead bear with her bare hands. The girl intended to kill the protagonist for the words he said to her. She didn't know that such a wonderful game could have such bastards. The protagonist received a notification that Miss Beautiful Lips and Miss Slender Legs treat him friendly, but Miss Shape wanted to kill him. The protagonist heard something. When he turned around, he saw first a hand and later the girl herself, who intended to stab him with an axe. She started from the back on the weak man. Just before the blow, the hero asked where the pretty girl, whom he accidentally offended, had gone. After these words, the blow stopped, right near the hero's head. The girl could not understand what the protagonist said. The protagonist started talking about how he had never met a girl like her, and as soon as she got angry, his heart was pierced by the blades. The protagonist assumed that he hadn't considered all the tenderness of the girl underneath such a powerful body. She listened intently. The protagonist said that he had never seen such a girl and started saying a huge number of compliments. She thought about the words said by the protagonist. The protagonist talked about how he regretted that he missed her. After such words, the girl's attitude changed to friendly, and a little time later her attitude changed to infatuation. The protagonist reached for the flower and said that true beauty hides inside and not outside. So he said that beautiful flowers grow in this horrible place. He said aloud that Miss Beautiful Shapes exactly the same flower. The hero heard the girl's implement fall. He looked back and saw the girl who called him brother. Her relationship went to the point of bigotry. The protagonist got 500 extra points for what the girl felt for him. The girl said that it was the first time she heard such a thing about herself, and she decided. After these words, she began to gain a lot of air in her lungs. The protagonist a little bit did not understand what she was going to do, and Miss Beautiful Forms with all her might screamed, from which the hero almost deafened. He began to shout that the protagonist from this moment only her. The attitudes of the other two girls changed to disgust. The protagonist didn't understand how he could flirt with others when she was yelling like that. Miss started running towards the protagonist. She was talking about how they should be together forever. If she hugs the guy, he might as well die. A spider web appeared and got caught on Miss Beautiful Shape's leg, so she fell. A moment later, a web of spider webs appeared over her head, and when she fell, the girl was trapped. Puffy Form started screaming at Miss Slender Legs. She is also a cruel level demon, said that the barbarian can't even handle one man. Spider-Woman ordered the main character to be given to her for re-education. Beautiful Shapes said the guy is hers, and there's no way she's giving him up. Spider-Woman asked if the hero wanted to bear children for her, and he realized that if he answered wrong, he would die. The protagonist decided that the best strategy would be to take the initiative. He turned to the girl and asked who let her talk to him like that. Spider-Woman was very surprised at such words, and the protagonist asked if she liked him just because she wanted him to throw away her baby. The protagonist started to play drama, as if he just wanted to be used. The girl started to justify herself. The protagonist started to shout that they didn't even have a wedding. The girl started to apologize. Her attitude changed to friendly. At the same time, the audience enthusiastically discussed what was happening. At the same time, the commentator was just as enthusiastic about how the hero had melted the girl's heart. Suddenly, the face of the lantern changed. He began to enthusiastically talk about the fact that Miss Day first showed interest in a man. The protagonist thought about the fact that the girl came unexpectedly. He assumed that there might be other creatures in this place. Behind his back, the protagonist heard the voice of Miss Pretty Lips. She was right behind him and looked really creepy. She started to talk about how beautiful she was, but the hero interrupted her with a punch to the face. The others didn't realize what had just happened. The protagonist said he hated insecure people, and she could impress anyone with her looks. The girl was surprised and seemed a little upset. At that time, the commentator was shocked. He decided to show repeatedly on the monitor what the hero did. Everyone thought that this was the moment when the protagonist would end. Even the commentator himself assumed that there could be only one outcome, but suddenly the girl's face was embarrassed. The girl's legs shook as there was not a hint of fear in the heart of the protagonist. She couldn't understand why her heart started beating so hard. The protagonist received the source of evil. The ability allowed to put the creature into a state of ecstasy for 24 hours. The protagonist was surprised and pleased with such a mechanism. He looked at the girl, who was simply delighted. She couldn't understand what was happening to her. Abruptly, she bore down on the hero and said that she wanted to try it. Her attitude changed to obsession. She approached the hero and suggested they reunite. The guy said he'd rather not. Ms. Beautiful Forms entered the fight. She tried to cut the Beautiful Lips with her sword, but she blocked the blow with her jaw. It didn't help much as it flew far forward. At that time, the Spider-Woman said that no matter what others do, the protagonist will still belong to her. The protagonist pointed behind her back and said that the other girls had a different opinion. They pounced on the Spider-Woman in an attempt to win the fight for the hero. 3 brutal level monsters were now fighting for a place next to the hero. Truly, the love of these creatures meant something else entirely. The protagonist understood the rules, namely, if he chose one, then the other 2 would kill him. But if one won and stayed with the hero, she would also kill him. The protagonist decided to say that he is sorry that he cannot choose one of the contenders. He said that the battle does not cause him any feelings. Pretty Lips asked what the protagonist wanted to say. Yes, and Ms. Beautiful Shapes also wanted to know the answer to the question. The main character explained that even if the girls destroy the world at this rate, he will not be moved by it. The girls assumed that he wanted to leave them and prepared to attack. The protagonist said that he meant that he was a very suspicious person. He said that it would be better for each of the girls to spend a little time with him, so that their feelings would be well developed. The protagonist promised that once he had spent time with each girl, he would choose one of the girls. The protagonist said that as soon as he chose his favorite girl, he would take care of her and the children with all his might, which the spider girl liked very much. The protagonist took the beautiful lips by the hand and said that even if he died at her hands, he would do it with love. The girl was touched by this. The girl said that she would definitely prove that only she was fit to be the hero's assassin. Some strange creature was eating a corpse. It turned around as it heard footsteps, but the hero just kicked it on the head. The same got angry and said that the man looked like a suicide. It pounced on the protagonist, and he shouted and called out Miss Pretty Lips. She was behind the back of the monster, and with the words, how he dared to touch her man, very frightened the monster, which was far from cruel level. Then the girl struck the creature directly in the eye. It started to run away, leaving a trail of blood behind it. The girl handed the eye to the hero and said that it was a gift. It was a very valuable material of blue rank ghoul eye. The girl asked when they would enter the honeymoon room, and the hero said that he also had a lot to tell the girl. The guy used the ability of suggestion. The girl said that when the hero looks like this she can't kill him. The guy realized that this is her instinct. The protagonist said that Miss Lips is the strongest and sincere girl of all, and he would like to die at her hands. But the protagonist said the show wouldn't allow that. The protagonist said that the show wants the girl to do what the audience wants. The hero said that they can go beyond the show. She said the main character's words were logical, and the guy pointed his finger in the direction and said there was a monster there that scared him. The girl ran that way to check who dared to scare her pretty boy. The protagonist assumed that since the program was against him, there would be a surprise for her soon. In the distance stood a huge monster that looked like a bear. The girl was instantly there and ripped it in two. She thought about how attractive the main character was and how she wanted to taste him. The time of ecstasy passed. The girl's consciousness began to clear. She didn't realize what had just happened. Her attitude moment looked smeg to murderous, and the protagonist realized that time was up. The hero asked the spider woman if everything was okay. The girl said that after touching the protagonist, she feels an intoxicating sensation. The protagonist said that he was thinking about the girl's words. The girl hugged the hero and said that if he chooses someone else they will definitely kill him. She promised that she will always protect the hero, but she needs a child from him. The girl said that if the hero does not give an answer now, she will kill him. But the guy said that the offer is tempting, but he has something to say. The girl asked what he had to say, and the hero said that if the spider woman wants a child with him, she should protect him properly. Miss Prettylegs agreed. He should be intact. The protagonist told the girl in the girl's ear that no one in the trial cares, and they want to kill him. He asked the girl, shouldn't such a program be interrupted? At that time, Miss Beautiful Lips started yelling at the hero. The spider girl asked why the girl came and asked the hero to stand behind her. The protagonist explained that he rejected her, and she came for revenge. The girl pounced on the guy, but the spider attacked her in midair, making her attack stop. She was angry at the spider, but her look changed when she saw Miss Slender Legs protecting the protagonist. The protagonist said she shouldn't do that, and Miss Pretty Lips said the spider woman was breaking the rules like that. She pulled out a gun and intended to kill the spider. True to her word, the girl quickly released the web and easily immobilized her opponent. That didn't help for long, and the evil woman got out of her shackles and headed straight for the spider woman, blocking her ranged attacks. Miss Pretty Lips struck a blow with her sword that scratched the spider woman's face a bit, making her furious. The girl demanded to give up his main character, and the spider woman promised that she would kill the girl. Between them began a battle. All this was watched by the hero, who provoked it. Behind the back heard the voice of Miss Beautiful Forms. The hero turned around and realized that she had already come. The girl said that she was waiting for him, and he never came to spend time with her. The girl swung her weapon, as she thought the hero had lied to her. The guy started to pull out his arm, and asked if it was possible, but in a moment his arm was cut off, and the hero was left with 10 XP out of 100. He fell down, and the girl said that the hero reminded her of someone from the past. The girl said that in those times, she was not in this world and worked as a butcher. Then she was fat, and no one looked at her. Then the girl met a man who admired her. It was her first time. The guy gave the girl contraband and asked her to help. He used it, and she ran away with the contraband from armed men. After surviving, she overheard a conversation where her lover was talking about being sick around the girl. She pointed outside the door, and the man said he should say a few kind words to her, and she would follow him to the ends of the earth. She then stormed in and killed the man and his brother. The girl said that what the hero said was very similar to what the man said. She liked it. She intended to do to the hero what she had done to the man. The protagonist said that in that case, she shouldn't have held his hand. He used a touch of evil, and later he moved on to suggestion. He asked if the girl remembered her name. She wondered. The protagonist said that she had participated in so many episodes, but her name had never been mentioned. The protagonist explained why this was so. It was because she was being used as a soulless tool on the show. The protagonist said he should start killing. He said she should kill everyone who uses it. The girl shouted with all her might, and the others noticed it, but she was already in front of them, and was ready to kill her rivals. There were 30 seconds left till the end of the program, and the hero started to crawl as far as possible. The hero's health was constantly decreasing due to blood loss. He already had 5 XP. He picked up the spider's paw, and picked up the hand of the mutilated girl, as well as he was able to get the purple equipment Fierce Ripper. All the girls looked at the hero, and couldn't understand what he was doing. He also wished everyone a pleasant viewing experience. The hero ran out of XP, but along with that the gear ran out, and he won. Miss Day's attitude changed to disorganization. At that time Miss Beautiful Shape was in despair. She heard the hero's voice asking her when was the last time she lived for herself. The commentator was talking about how incredible it was that the hero was able to win. The viewers started demanding a refund. The commentator reminded that the girl's ratings would go down as the tape would be archived. Suddenly a chain appeared. A huge weapon fell near the commander. It was Miss Form, who stood right in front of him. Other girls also surrounded the commentator. They said that no one else needed this show. The audience watched this with interest. The commentator hinted to the girls that they shouldn't do such a thing. Suddenly everyone looked in one direction and stopped talking. Even the noisy spectators were quiet. The commentator asked why Ms. Laziness came. He said that if he knew, he would have met Ms. Laziness beforehand. She said they had 10 seconds as she didn't like big crowds. The commentator didn't understand, and the girl started counting down. The spectators started to run away in panic, and after a moment, the whole place was empty. The commentator asked what happened. Ms. Laziness demanded all the information about the hero, and the flashlight said he only had a paper level. The girl didn't care, and demanded what she asked for. The commentator kneeled down and provided all the information. She looked at it and read it carefully. The girl said she was leaving and asked her to pretend like she wasn't even here. She was momentarily upset in midair. Miss Beautiful Lips was surprised that the girl paid attention to the character. At that time, Miss Form's axe appeared near the commentator's body. He yelled at the girl, as he thought it was unlikely that she would want to antagonize the crew. She, on the other hand, started yelling about how no one would stop her. At the time, a peddler in the main city of Hate was washing a wall. He complained that it was all the main character's fault. Behind him, a man ordered the guy to shut up and get on with his work. It was a tongue-tied parallel-level monster. The guy started apologizing and kept working. The monster complained that the humans could only eat when drained. Torgash thought about how one day he too would become a master. On the test gate were the most difficult tests passed, and suddenly there was a test without killing Do Not Disturb, the only passed test of the brutal level. The merchant was very surprised that someone managed to pass such a level test. The hero successfully completed the quest. He passed it with excellence and was rewarded with 5,000 points. He received a purple chest. His level increased to 3, and he received 2 attribute values. Because the hero was the first to pass this challenge, he received 10 spirit points. Since the hero was at the top of the table, he was automatically teleported to the city of Vesti. The protagonist noticed that the injury he had received had healed after the end of the story. The protagonist noticed that the city of Negaquest was not much different from the previous safe zone. The protagonist went to see what the purple chest was. He got the skill Demonic Affinity, which could save 1 XP and turn him into a demon for a while. The protagonist called the skill very life-threatening. Still, he decided to learn this skill, as it will definitely come in handy. The protagonist also started to look at other items in his inventory. A ferocious ripper that reduced the owner's HP by 1% every second. The protagonist was surprised, as the weapon was truly fierce. The protagonist was now at the parallel level. He pulled out a weapon that was imbued with aura, and its charge began to drop little by little. The protagonist realized that to use the weapon, he needed a lot of medicine. The monster came in, excited about his new toy. The protagonist used the breath of hatred and began to approach the monster, scaring it. The monster apologized for hurting the hero and hurried away. He ran very far away. The protagonist assumed it was the ability of the weapon and decided to put it away for the time being. The peddler waved to the hero and offered to be friends together. The protagonist remembered the guy. The same guy threw a bucket with all his might as he recognized the hero. He started yelling that the protagonist was the reason he was in this place. The hero apologized since it was his first game. The merchant couldn't understand how the newcomer became the most wanted criminal. The hero didn't know the answer himself and planned to ask someone from this world. The guy said that the hero was out of luck and decided to tell everything. The world consisted of safe zones and 4 districts: paper, parallel, strong and violent. The safe zone is guarded by a system, and even if you die there, nothing happens. The paper zone is a fairly easy zone where the penalty for death is only the loss of a few items. In the parallel zone, the influence of the system is less, and if you die there you can lose all items. But the strong level is a dangerous place where only the strongest players can be. There if you die you lose the whole level and all items. The guy advised never to go to a district that did not ask the hero. Players who were able to defeat a strong level boss could pass through customs by paying money. The protagonist asked, "What about the brutal level?" The man explained that today was the first time passing this level. You could get legendary purple items there, but it was impossible to get there through the portal. The man did not believe that someone could really pass the tests of the cruel level, because if you die there you die in reality. The protagonist realized that the man said that their city is in a terrible place, as dying in this city will be a lot of problems, as they are in a strong zone. The guy explained that if you complete the task the negativity index will be less, and they can get out. He had only 20 points. And the hero was very surprised. He had an infinite hate figure. The Negavesta capital was in chaos, and the more treacherous a person was, the more honorable he was. The guy explained that people like him with a small level of Negavesti were just bugs. At that time, the guy saw the monster catch the man and order him to come in with him. He pierced the guy's chest through with his hand. He said that if a man passed by he should go in and buy something. The guy explained that the local guys hate humans, and they need to be careful. He continued talking but noticed that the hero had disappeared. He finally found the store, and was standing at the entrance. The friend asked if the hero was crazy. He said that they should leave quickly, because if they were spotted by the monsters they would be finished. The protagonist went inside the store, and the friend called him suicidal. The protagonist was serious. The salesman was sitting behind the counter, and when he realized that a man had come in, he immediately became despondent. The protagonist said he wanted to buy a recovery potion. The monster said that one bottle would cost 500 points. The protagonist saw that the price of the potions was 50 points per bottle. The monster approached and said that the price was 10 times higher for humans. The vendor said it was too late to leave now, but the protagonist closed the doors and said he wasn't going to leave. The monster was a little surprised by this. He didn't understand what the hero was going to do. The protagonist drew his weapon, and with a precise blow cut the enemy in half. He was left with only half of his body, and asked the protagonist to stop. But the hero didn't listen and approached his enemy. The monster was incredibly frightened and asked to stop. He said that if the hero kills him, the city will not forgive him. The protagonist asked if the mayor would allow him to sell goods for 10 times the price. The monster did not know what to say. The hero did not wait and put a gun to the body of the monster. The protagonist proposed a solution, namely that the monster would sell him goods at a discount of 10%. The monster began to cry and promised that the guy will get a discount on everything. When the protagonist left the store, he was thanked and asked for more. The protagonist said he shouldn't be blamed, it was just self-defense. The protagonist bought 20 health and spirit potions each. The protagonist also bought a ghost cloak for 800 points instead of 8,000 points. The protagonist was yelling about how much he liked this place. At that time in the real world, a huge man was standing in a supermarket. He looked at one of the merchandise and reached for it. When he took the merchandise, a traveler's mark was visible on his hand. He was walking down the street with a full shopping bag. He was approached by a dog, who mentally told him that there was something this man needed to know. She told him that a man had been able to pass through the dungeons of the brutal level. This person's face immediately changed. He was one of the few who could pass the trials of a strong level player named Ming Xiaohua. At that time, the hero's friend was incredibly surprised. He was very shocked by the cloak that was worth as much as 8,000 points. The protagonist said that there was a good owner there, and he had discounted it. His friend's face immediately twisted when he heard about the discount, as this vendor used to make him buy potions for 500 points. He looked at the hero and assumed that he was the local tyrant, and if he was around him, he would get rich. The friend asked if he and the boss could communicate in the future. The protagonist said that he didn't need a little brother. The man started to take off his hood and talk about how he was the youngest. He made a serious face and offered to be the son of the hero. The protagonist's face was indescribable. He sat down and said that such insolence was unexpected. The guy offered to add him as a friend. The hero touched his mark to his, and now they became friends. The guy recognized the hero's name and said that if he needed help, let him write, he would be happy to help. After saying that, the guy disappeared. The main character became interested in the communication system. The system notified that the limit of staying in another world has passed, and the hero will be returned back. In the real world it was evening. The protagonist was on the roof of a building. Exactly in 24 hours, he will be moved back to the game. The protagonist had spent 2 hours in the game world, but in the real world only 12 minutes had passed, which meant that the time ratio was 1 to 12. The protagonist took out an Izania potion that restored 30% of his health. The hero was happy that he could take the stuff with him back to the real world. He started drinking the recovery potion. When he finished, he threw away the bottle, which just started to dissolve into thin air. The protagonist noticed that the shelter on the other side was noisy. He looked directly at the buildings. At that time, the protagonist's friend was near the kids who were thanking and cheering the guy on. He was giving the kids candy and saying that he would probably be rich soon. A child asked him why he thought so, and he told them that he had found a wig and that he was a rich master. The children didn't believe their brother, as he had said such things more than once. The kid got angry and started pulling the kid's ears. He looked straight ahead and saw a familiar face. There was a hero walking. He was heading to the hospital. The nurses came out of the hospital. They were looking for the hero for half a day. He said he was breathing fresh air. The protagonist said that he would go to his board himself, and he did not need to be accompanied. The girls felt very sorry for the hero, as he was very good but with a terrible disease. The protagonist didn't know if those 5 slots of health and spirit helped him, but he hurried to his room. Upon opening the doors, he was shocked as there was Ms. Laziness lying on his bed. The protagonist looked carefully at the bed, where lay a very beautiful girl playing a console. He assumed that his illness was developing and headed to the nightstand. He opened one drawer, took out medicine, and poured himself a few pills. The protagonist said in the hearing that this is the most realistic hallucination after having brain problems. The protagonist talked about the girl being a devil who couldn't pass the first level of the game's 7 deadly sins. The girl was very upset about losing. The protagonist drank some medicine and said that in about a minute the girl should disappear. She shoved the app in the guy's face and said that if he could win, let him show it. The protagonist started touching the girl's body. She looked at him with the app. The protagonist thought that his illness had worsened greatly since the hallucination seemed real. The girl said that the source of evil was awakened by some retard. The protagonist started thinking the girl feeling everything as if she was real. Her patience ran out, and there was a commotion. The nurses left the room thinking about the lights being turned off. The girl warned that she was counting to 3. If the hero didn't become adequate, she would hit him. The girl said she was too lazy to count to 3. The guy kneeled down and told the woman not to be so fierce. He said he was going to pass the game. A nurse knocked on the hero's door and asked if the guy was okay. He said he was naked and that he was asleep. At that time, the hero had beaten the console. The girl was angry that she looked so funny and wanted to kill the person who created the game. The protagonist said that the depiction of the sin of laziness in the old version was even worse. The protagonist explained that people usually imagine horrible things as horrible, not as beautiful women. The hero said hello to his guest of honor, Mrs. Laziness. The girl praised the protagonist's mental stats and said he was worthy of the source of evil. The protagonist asked what happened to others who awakened this mechanism. The girl explained that people always died. The girl came to remind the hero to be careful. If he continues to perform well, they will see each other again. The protagonist asked a few questions about the source of evil and how she got into the real world. The girl said that she was a special case and even so was afraid to stick out much, and about the source of evil advised the hero not to die to find out everything. The protagonist assumed that he didn't have any arguments for refusal. He took a closer look at the item she had purposely left for the hero. This item could summon the original owner for help only once. The hero was POM for a strong level test. The task was to take a guidebook and bring it to one place. The protagonist was surprised that there were a lot of people in the multiplayer mode. When the hero went in, he saw a huge number of people. They started looking at the hero to examine him. He passed by saying that people would let him pass. People didn't understand what a level 3 man was doing here. Someone opened the doors with a kick. This person immediately turned to the newcomers. He was level 10 and asked them not to cling to him. People were discussing this person, who was from the Dragon Union. The man with dyed hair said that the newcomers should listen to him, and then they would pass. The guys immediately started praising their new boss. He turned his attention to one man and pointed his finger at the hero. The protagonist didn't understand what it was about, but the man approached the protagonist point blank and asked what was wrong with his level. The colored man didn't understand what the wallet was doing here, and the hero said he was just unlucky. The man told him to stay out of the way and just watch the professionals work. The protagonist smiled and said it would be even easier that way. The man's head was pierced by something flying at tremendous speed. People were shocked. The glasses fell, and the traveler was instantly killed. It was a revolver shot. The man who fired said that the man was late and broke a rule. The man greeted the guys at the afterlife station. The men were scared as a pro player had just died in front of them. The man advised everyone to reread the handbook to know the rules. The main character now understood the meaning of the words director can kill any player with one shot. In the handbooks there were 3 orders: simple, a little more complicated, and red, the most complicated. The man explained that they had to complete that task and then they could get out alive. One of the men tore out one page thinking it would be easy. He was ordered to deliver a strong level boss, a hell wolf. He started to say he wouldn't do it, and moments later was killed. The man explained that Article 5 said that the order could not be refused. He looked at the players and asked them not to forget. The player's corpse started to disappear, and the man asked not to break the rules from now on and asked the players to start. People were scared as their orders were very difficult. At that time, they heard the voice of one guy who said he had an easy order. This man tore out the blue page. He needed to deliver food to the rotating skyscraper in room 306. He ran to complete the task. The others looked at each other. The protagonist called this kind of reaction lightning fast. The stipulation stated that express delivery, and that once received, the order could not be cancelled. The protagonist decided that there was nothing wrong with picking up someone else's simple order. One of the men ordered the newcomer to look in his handbook. The protagonist assumed the man was the famous Xiaoming Xian. The guys mocked the protagonist for his low level and suggested that he exchange orders. The protagonist smiled and thought about these words. The protagonist asked if he could pass the trials below the cruel level. The girl explained that yes, so also the trials will become harder by a level for other players. In any case, the protagonist will also have problems. The protagonist agreed to trade with the man. The protagonist showed his item. He had a red task. He was called a Mancer, and the protagonist started showing other pages that were also red. The guys doubted that the protagonist could survive. The hero showed that he had a third red assignment. The guy in the green sweater was shocked, and the hero asked who wanted to trade with him. The people immediately backed off and asked him not to even touch their orders. As a result, all the players started to shun the protagonist. The hero assumed that now everyone would pin him down. At the time, a man dabbling with a revolver, he said that for the first time he sees that all the tasks were red, and expressed his regret, because of the low level of the hero will not survive. The protagonist said that he could do all the tasks to make the man happy. The old man said that since the hero was so confident, he could answer any question. The protagonist said that it is a pity to do only simple tasks. He made a serious look and asked, "For red tasks the final reward is higher, right?" The old man pretended not to understand the question. The protagonist assumed that if he completed all the red tasks it would cause financial hardship for them. So the fact that he was a newcomer must have pleased the old man. The old man praised the hero's self-confidence and said that he had hidden potential. The man explained that yes, the hero correctly assumed that difficulty determines the reward. The protagonist said goodbye as he had no desire to befriend his grandfather's revolver. The protagonist repeated the words that he only had one question. The old man took off his hat saying that it was quite good. He didn't expect anything else from a traveler who had experienced such a thing. He wished the hero good luck. At that time the protagonist stepped outside the building. To his right stood some man with a flashlight, which blinded the hero. The bald man told him that he had as many as 3 blue orders and offered the newcomer to trade. The man explained that the hero could not fulfill the red order and asked to give it to him. The protagonist thought about the rating of this man, and level 15. The man smiled and said that if the hero had any complaints, he could challenge him. The protagonist knew this man as someone who had challenged a strong level dungeon. The bald man saw that the hero had heard of the man and asked him to name his solution. The protagonist showed the man his book, and the man already thought he had gotten his red assignments, but the hero ripped out the page, then got the order. Walking away, the main character apologized as his arm twitched. The man told the hero to stop and tried to attack him from the back. The hero instantly summoned his sword. This scared the man, and he stopped right before he struck. The hero asked what the bald man wanted to say. The man smiled and said that even a man of his level was easy to negotiate with. The protagonist assumed there was a misunderstanding between the two, and they laughed themselves silly together. The protagonist said goodbye to the man and said he was leaving. The bald man's face changed, and he decided to find another victim to get a better reward. Baldy was surrounded by other players. He was determined to deal with them. The man laughed at the fact that the guys wouldn't leave him alone. One of the enemies said that no one could disobey the orders of the elders, and reminded that if Baldy died here, he would lose everything. The crowd of players started to attack. A man grabbed one of the players by the head, which surprised the enemies. The bald man held the guy's head above the ground and asked the guys what they wanted from him. When he let go of his hand, the player's body fell and started to dissolve into the air, which meant that he was dead. Baldy looked at his opponents and smiled. He decided to kill them all and take the red missions. The protagonist needed to deliver the doll to the psycho boss. He was already at the gate. The protagonist assumed the doll was a lost and found. Someone had taken the doll, and it was lost. The protagonist thought they treated the customers badly because they didn't even give them a bag. The protagonist was already at the right address, and he wondered if crazy people really lived here. He pressed the call button and started to say that he had a package for a crazy lady. There was silence in response, and a moment later there was a scream that made him shudder. At that time, another man was given the task of delivering the fodder. He was hanging suspended from a moth and screaming about not fulfilling the order. The entity said that the man had brought very little fodder, and to get enough of it you had to kill him. The guy started to fall right into a pack of hungry wolves. Another person had an assignment to deliver a temple bell. She was thanked for her help and surrounded on all sides. She asked what kind of gratitude this was. One of the zombies said they needed the girl for burial. One more task was to deliver a love letter. It was very easy, and the man did it quickly. There was also a task to deliver medicine to the physician, and it was also very easy, so the man coped with it quickly. The protagonist was thinking about how big the difference between simple orders and complex ones was. A simple growl had taken 20% of his HP off. The protagonist was glad, as he hadn't saved the healing potions for nothing. He drank one and healed to full health. Coughing a bit, he headed to the bell again. He said it was a courier. In response, he heard unintelligible sounds, and at the end a word about him coming in. The protagonist assumed that a nice girl was waiting for him, and said that the gate was closed and he could not enter. All he got in response was static from the intercom. The protagonist decided to use his own method and called for a weapon. He made a slashing blow at the gate and easily went inside. Opening the door, he introduced himself and said he was from the delivery. What he saw shocked him. He saw a very messy room and a girl who sat watching the noises of the television. The protagonist apologized for disturbing him and asked the girl to take her order. She, on the other hand, told the protagonist to be quiet because the smiley face had just fallen asleep and he almost woke him up. She showed the smiley face, which she called very cute. The protagonist said he had a bright future ahead of him and held out the toy he had to deliver. The girl's face was sad. The girl asked if it was a laughing doll and said that Xiao Xiao was now in her hands. The girl started to contradict herself. She thought that the hero had decided to trick her and steal Xiao Xiao. She called him a liar and knocked over the doll that the hero had brought. The girl started screaming that the person trying to steal her child should die. She went to attack the hero with a knife. She swore to kill the protagonist, and he saw the doors and went to them, turned the handle and left the house, closing the doors just before the girl jumped out after him. He started holding the door, and she banged on it with all her might. The hero stepped back, but the knocking didn't stick. The protagonist had a little bit of spent HP, and the door will not last long. The room he found himself in was completely different from the ones he had seen before. At that time, the doors started to crack and the protagonist felt as if it was drawn by a child. The drawing said that the girl hoped her mom would be happy. The protagonist looked at the calendar where a whole 100 days had passed without Xiao Xiao. The protagonist felt sorry for the girl, who was looking for Xiao Xiao for a very long time. Flipping through the calendar, there was seen that more than 2,000 days had passed. At that time, from this place fell a business card of the company for which the hero worked within the assignment. The hero assumed they'd gone too far in their lies. The girl stabbed the doors with a knife. The protagonist thought that for the girl to accept the courier normally, she would have to calm down. The protagonist appreciated the room he was in. He noticed the closet and had an idea. At that time, the girl broke through the doors with her hand and was able to open the doors, and the first thing she said was for the guy to give her back Xiao Xiao. Her face changed instantly. The hero changed into the dresses in the closet and said the word mom, pretending to be a girl. The mother was shocked that her girl had grown up so fast. The girl hugged the hero and said that she was very happy. The main character said that it was not like that. He said that the woman was wrong, and taking a knife from her, he stabbed himself in the stomach, asking if the girl wanted to protect him. The mother started repeating the word no. She remembered how the girl was drawing a picture. Behind the girl there was a man who asked her a question. As soon as the girl turned around, at the same moment her look changed, and the doll was splattered with bloodstains. The mother went out to call her daughter for dinner, but what she saw horrified her. The events with the hero reminded the girl of the terrible past, and she began to scream in pain. In the past, the girl went to a company where they promised to get her anything. The mother asked if they had seen her daughter, and told a little about when she went missing. The old man said they had seen the child. The mother started begging the man to tell her everything. The old man said it would cost a lot of money. The girl fell to her knees and started begging. She promised to do whatever was asked of her. The old man said he would take the girl's mind and her daughter would come back. He started pulling the woman's mind, saying that he was sure she would become a regular customer. The girl was in a trance and asked the old man to stop. The protagonist saw the woman trying with all her might to resist the hypnosis. She talked about how her daughter had just left and begged not to wake her up. The protagonist said that self-deception is the idea of creating another person's handiwork. The woman begged not to be woken up. She was desperate, but she heard her daughter's voice. She saw her and couldn't believe it, but it was actually the protagonist with a Xiao Xiao doll. The protagonist congratulated the girl for regaining some of her sanity. She asked in surprise if she was awake. The protagonist said that he was asked to deliver the doll by his boss, and the girl should figure out for herself what that means. The protagonist explained that there are better things in the world than self-deception. He advised the girl to pick up the delivery and leave a good review. The hero was promoted, and the pay increased by 100%. The hero said goodbye to the girl. She asked him to wait. The girl asked if her daughter was alive. The protagonist advised the girl to go and see for herself if her daughter was alive. She opened the window and put the doll on the windowsill. She asked Xiao Xiao to wait for her. The statue began to wobble and eventually broke into many pieces. The old man took the head of the statue and expressed his regret for losing a good customer. The old man smiled and said aloud that it was time to start the second act of the play. He told Xiao Xiao to speak. A growl was heard in one room. At that time, a man received his package at the fitness center. Inside was fried and greasy food. He could not help himself when he saw such tasty food. He drooled and bore into the bowl of food. After a while, he finished. He looked at the vendor with his crazy eyes and started running towards him. The man tried to run away, but was eventually caught by the fat man. At that time, the man delivering the love letter was lying on the ground. The girl killed the other players and approached him. The girl asked who the man was who wrote this letter that had the word pig written on it. The man started to say that it was not him. The girl got angry and said that in that case he was of no use. So the guy was killed. The bald man was running and thinking that even with easy orders there are problems. Baldy was frustrated that he could only find one red-ranked job. The assignment turned out to be delivering love to a very powerful creature. The man stopped because a hunch told him there was an ambush. He decided to take a look at what kind of monster was in this challenge, and in that place was the hero who was taking off his shirt. Baldy cried out aloud in surprise. The main character looked in his direction and was also surprised. He said he saw the bald man who was hiding in the grass. The man saw the sign of an excellent worker and realized that the protagonist was able to fulfill T-Red order. The protagonist said he had done it easily, and when asked if the hero had any other orders, the man asked if the bald man wanted to try. The bald man assumed that the hero was the man who had passed the brutal level tests. The man asked if the hero would like to cooperate with him. He explained that the monsters would eventually open a hunt for couriers, and for this reason, it would be beneficial for them to cooperate. He offered the hero to familiarize himself with the contents of his order as a sign of trust. The protagonist took a closer look and had a troubled look, which the bald man noticed. The protagonist pulled out his order and said that now the bald man would understand. The recipient turned out to be the same, but the protagonist needed to deliver a light. The bald man said they should stick together. At the time, a man distraught with food was wandering nearby. Baldy told the hero to move on while he dealt with this monster. The hero told him to wait, and he was very surprised. The protagonist put on his cloak and told the bald man to follow him, because then they would be able to pass without taking damage. All the monsters in the challenge were very strong, so the guys had to come up with some kind of plan. Baldy pondered the fact that the hero was unlikely to show his trump card. He said that the main character could go, and he would try to deal with the fat man. Surprisingly, the male protagonist said it was fine, and they could go. The bald man's face was shocked at what he saw. While the fat man smelled the smell of meat and quickly headed over there, he looked out of the tree, and with a smile to his ears told the food to come out. But there, instead of food, he saw the main character, who resembled death itself. He looked at the monster and said that another bug had gotten a hold of his prey. The fat one immediately started to justify himself out of fright. He said that it was just a misunderstanding. The protagonist didn't believe him and started to approach. The fat one started to run away as fast as he could. The hero praised the effect of the cloak that hid his face. He said that the enemy was gone and the man could already get up. The bald man suggested the guy to become friends, as keeping such people as enemies is a huge mistake. The protagonist asked if the man had any blood medicine. Baldy explained that the monsters start chasing the delivery man anyway with the desire to kill him. Baldy said that he had been on this challenge before with friends. Then they were surrounded by monsters from easy orders, and he had to run away. The hero said that doing difficult orders is the best option. The guys prepared to break through the crowds of monsters. At that time, a group of people were running away from someone. They were running and complaining that this was happening despite the fact that they had completed the order. Behind their backs was a huge digger monster of a strong rank. One of the men assumed that there was something wrong with the things they were delivering. It turned out that their order was to deliver pesticides, which provoked the monster. The guys noticed another man. They planned to take the monster to the bald man so that he would switch to him and let them go. At that time, the man suddenly began to run in their direction. The guys could not understand what he was running away from, but a moment later saw behind his back death itself. As a result, the hero was chasing the bald man, and people quickly hid in the bushes. A couple was already in front of the monster, but even he saw the hero immediately hid in the bushes. Looking out of the bushes, they saw that the hero and the bald man ran on, and all together breathed a sigh of relief. The monster noticed the people, as he was hiding in the same bushes, and started running after them again. Baldy said that all the monsters gave way to them. Is the hero so frightening? At the time, the protagonist was drinking health potions, as he had 25% health. The protagonist suggested that it might be a feature of handsome guys. At the time the temple bell order was completed, the girl was running her finger over the item, and complaining that it took her more than half of her resources for one task. The girl was happy that by completing the task she had gotten a promotion. The girl started to leave but noticed a man and assumed it was a subordinate of the elder. The other players were discussing how incredible Ms. Shou Beck was to be able to complete a high-level order by herself. The girl modestly said that she wasn't that incredible and asked what they wanted this time. One of the players said about the Titsu killing Meng Xiaohua. The girl asked, did Meng Hua really mess with him? The player said there was one offer even more generous than that. The girl was interested and asked for more details. The players ordered to find a guy who had passed the brutal level test, and the payment would be twice as much as this order. The girl told the guys to forget it, as she knows how to kill people, but no way to find. The players suggested a compromise, and remembered that the girl knows Meng Xiaohua. The girl confessed that they have a good relationship, once even participated in a difficult test together. The girl said that if the bald man wasn't around, she would probably die, so their relationship could be called a close one. The player wanted to offer something, but she was interrupted by a girl who asked to pay more. At that time, the bald man had already arrived at the place of the order. He shared with the hero that he had no idea what the king of the crypt was. They started to walk further. Someone's voice was heard from above, and they looked up to see what was there. There the creature asked how the man dared to enter the possession of the king of the crypt. There was this one-eyed monster hanging from a tree. The protagonist asked, what is it? The monster jumped down from the tree towards the boys. A shockwave spread from its fall. The monster said he hates humans. The bald man said he was here to fulfill an order. The crypt king said he ordered his eyes. Baldy didn't understand what the monster was talking about because it wasn't written. The crypt king told a horrible story about an evil man who took advantage of the girl to steal his eye. He hated the man, but because of the girl's power, he couldn't do anything about it. Baldy said that it sounded like complete nonsense, since a strong monster couldn't be a rookie bodyguard. The monster said that he eventually found the company and ordered his eye back. He threatened the people, saying that if they didn't give him his eye, he would take the guy's eyes. There were other players behind the guys. The girl said they hadn't seen the bald man in a long time. The protagonist asked if they were enemies, but the bald man said they were friends, but the girl could kill her father for money. The girl said that she was even a little flattered by such words. The girl asked her friend to let her kill him, as she would get a large sum of money for it. The protagonist turned to the girl and suggested to discuss something. The protagonist asked if he could leave while they were fighting. The girl said that it wouldn't work that way, as the assistant would have to be involved as well. The protagonist was sad that the matter could not be settled peacefully, so he stood closer to the monster and said that everything depends on the girl. The monster did not understand such a move and was very surprised, and the girl did not understand what the hero was doing. The monster pointed to the people and asked, "Aren't you going that way?" The protagonist began to remove the hood and looked at the king of the crypt and asked, "Do not you recognize me?" The monster's face immediately distorted. He remembered how the hero hit him in nothing honorable, and when he turned around near the guy was a girl. The crypt king took a swing at the hero and was intent on revenge. The other players were just discussing what an idiot the new guy was. And the hero told the king of the crypt that he hadn't changed. After these words he stopped, and thought about the fact that the man was too calm. The protagonist looked at the monster with a cruel look and suggested that the monster continue what he had started. The monster stood and pondered the fact that the hero wants the king of the crypt to attack. He was sure that the scary girl who protects the hero is definitely somewhere nearby. He put his hand on the hero's shoulder and told him that he was his friend. The players were shocked by this turn of events. The protagonist asked how the king of the crypt looks at getting rid of these people. The monster thought about it. As there were quite a lot of people, the protagonist took out the monster's eye and showed him. He promised that if the king of the crypt would help him, he could get his eye back. Leaving, the hero said that if suddenly the monster does not want to, he can just forget about it. The crypt king snatched his eye and said he was willing to do anything. The protagonist complied and ordered the crypt king to attack. The monster immediately rushed towards the humans. The players immediately tensed up and were about to run away. The hero anointed the guys, and the crypt king goodbye and started to leave. At that time, the monster had already attacked several people. One of the players complained about the speed of the monster and asked the girl to shoot at it. She began to retreat. The girl explained that while the guys delay the monster, she would find and catch the hero. At that time, a bald man appeared behind her back and attacked the girl with all his might, causing a huge cloud of dust. The wounded girl expressed surprise at the man's skill, and the man ordered her to stop bothering the hero. She assumed that the protagonist was not indifferent to the man, and finally she said that he had piqued her curiosity and disappeared, leaving only a doll in her place. The man knew it was a strawman prop. At that time, the hero was moving with great speed and leaving the scene of the moya. He knew that the man was not just hanging out with him. The protagonist had snatched the last task, which was to deliver laughter to Huangquan subway station. At that time, the puppeteer looked at the figure of the madwoman, who was broken without being able to eat the hero, as well as the figure of the monster who also failed to fulfill his task. The old man said that in the play things often didn't go according to plan. The warden needed to threaten the store manager, but as a screenwriter, he doesn't want it to be like that. He said the actors shouldn't deviate so much from their roles. The lower orders were not fulfilled, and dark energy began to seep from the statues, which the old man absorbed, complaining that the energy of a normal actor was not enough. He heard a sound from the room. The old man told the creature not to lose patience, as it would soon be free. He said that a warden could exist in a cruel level realm, and the body of such a one was capable of many things. The old man was at the peak of the strong level, and he only had one step left to get to the fierce realm. Grandfather talked about how the fruit should be ripe to be as sweet as possible. He refined one statue and said that he was forced to be in this place. At that time the players started to disappear. The monster said that now the foolish people know the price of the king's anger. At that time, the bald man also killed the enemy, and the monster called him strong, saying that he would remember him. Suddenly the king got headaches. He fell to his knees and started squirming in pain. He explained that the delivery, if it was not fulfilled, the manager would intervene, and the order was not fulfilled. The bald man told him that he had another order. The monster was very surprised, and the man approached him and said he would help him now. He put his arm around the king and said he was worth trusting. The bald man kissed the monster, thus giving him love. The king cried because his wish had been granted. At that time, other monsters were destroying everything around them. The protagonist called them completely crazy. Also, the guy wondered why the girl was following him. The girl approached the protagonist and put her hand near his head and started talking. Bald Man was in the top 100 players, and all of them had long ago abandoned moral principles. The protagonist wondered why the girl was telling him this. The girl came even closer and said she wanted to know what the protagonist was worth. The killed players started to come back. They were very upset that now their level was first again. They contacted the others, but they were also killed in the test. One of the girls started swearing. He decided to write to the girl who survived. Anger overtook the player as the girl blocked her, and now they can't exchange messages. She assumed that the girl had thrown them in a CS to take all the bounty. One of the players couldn't believe it, as the girl was one of the top 100 players. The player said that people in the top 100 were never afraid of anything if it helped them achieve their goals. At that time, another group of people came back. One of them held out his hand and said to look at what he had managed to record. He said that they had encountered a player with all the cool equipment. He assumed that this was the person who had passed the ferocious level. The girl player smiled and said that she did not know the answer, but they could not miss such an opportunity. At that time, the hero moved to fulfill his task, and the girl ran after him. She asked why the guy was running away, and promised not to eat him. She said that in the worst case, she would trade the hero for money. She told him that the old man was looking for a guy who had passed the ferocious level and promised a reward of 2 blue suits. She asked the hero to give her some answers. She overtook the hero and stood in front of him and asked him a direct question. Is he the guy who passed the fierce level? She also said that the hero was much slower than her, and he couldn't escape. He asked what would happen if he answered. The girl confessed that in that case, she would have a great offer for him. She also said that she could just kill the guy and get the reward. The protagonist was surprised by the sliding weapon, and the girl said that the weapon was spell-like, and that she used her hunter mechanism to use the 3-sin spell. The protagonist was pierced by that shot. Surprisingly, he got good buffs. He didn't expect to get positive reinforcements. The girl asked if the hero wanted to know why she didn't kill him. She said it was PvE, and they should have fought hand-to-hand. Really, because of the old man and his companions, that didn't happen. The protagonist asked for the truth, and the girl said that people don't have enough money to pay. The girl said that it was impossible to defeat the boss unless there was an overseer, which the protagonist was. She said that if you can't win, you should run away, the best strategy. The protagonist realized what the girl wanted. A little while later, the guy arrived at the right place, and opening the door, his eyes immediately flooded with tears. He saw a child who was crying just as hard. He looked at the protagonist and began to run furiously in his direction. He got close and started screaming. The protagonist wondered why the monster was crying. The guy sat down before the kid and said that he would smile. The hero noticed a strange thing. Next to this child, he himself begins to cry. The protagonist could not resist the ability of this monster and could not laugh. The child grabbed the hero by the neck and started screaming in pain. After a moment, the hero lost consciousness and the monster offered to laugh together. They ended up inside the main character's mind. The kid assumed that the hero had been through a lot of pain. He wanted to look at the guy's fears and pains. Hearing that the hero didn't mind showing, he got excited, but when the main character turned his head to face, there was a black hole there. The kid couldn't understand how a person's painful memories could be like that. The hero didn't understand what the big deal was, because it was just a mixture of his bad memories. He ordered the child to keep looking, and many horrible and terrible memories began to surround the child. Even the monster, seeing the horror in his head, was incredibly scared, but the protagonist was glad that now at least someone could see his pain. After a few seconds, the child screamed in fear and fell off the hero's body. The monster started to run away, and the hero was still on his knees. Looking at the monster, the protagonist told the monster not to run away, as he still wasn't done. The kid kept running to the room, and once he was inside, he instantly closed the doors. The monster huddled in a corner talking about how scared he was. At that time, there was a bang on the door, and after a while the hero came out of there asking why the kid was running away. The monster cowered in the corner and begged the kid to stop. At that time, the old man was thinking that he liked tragedies. They reveal the beauty and taste of pain. The old man said that hardly anyone can smile in the face of crying, because at that moment they experience the worst moments of their life. The old man was very interested in what the child saw. He couldn't believe that the monster was scared. The monster was terrified. He threw a toy at the protagonist and ordered him to leave. At that time, the protagonist looked at the monster pulling out his weapon. There was a Xiao Xiao doll lying near the guy's leg. He recognized it and assumed that this child was the same girl his mother was looking for. The protagonist turned to the frightened monster. He asked, "The girl's name in the past is not Xiao Xiao by any chance?" The child heard the name and started to say that the name sounded very familiar and asked if the protagonist knew her mom. Suddenly, the monster's head started to hurt very badly. The protagonist approached to help the child, but from his back appeared a green thread that attacked the hero, who at the last moment managed to block the attack. Even after blocking the attack, the hero had to lie on the ground. From the body of the monster began to appear a huge number of threads, which all at once directed at the protagonist. The guy dodged each of the attacks. Leaving the room, he managed to buy himself time. The protagonist was grateful to the girl who gave him a buff, because in this case, he would have died. The protagonist's weapon was grabbed by threads, and the protagonist realized that the child had become a puppet in someone's games. The old man said that he had been watching the boy for a long time, and he was not worth his weapon, which was a trump card. The grandfather cried, as he too had fallen under the monster's ability. The old man said that as employees of the company they should be polite to customers, and surrounded the hero with a bunch of dolls. The protagonist said that the fact that he came to personally supervise everything was very touching. The old man said that the guy was very interesting, so he talked to one of his employees. The old man snapped his fingers and called the crying boy a naive child. A chair appeared beside the guy, which the old man told him to sit on. The grandfathers said that they could certainly talk differently. The protagonist, on the other hand, said that he was just wondering what the old man wanted. He stood up and said he wanted his favorite work environment, better working conditions. The old man asked, "What is the most important thing in running a business?" He answered his own question with the word demand. He explained that if you have demand, you can succeed. The old man said that crying is a child that he raised and that helps him to know what customers are afraid of. The old man said that by knowing his clients' fears, he makes them real. Some of the clients were afraid of obesity, so the client will want to lose weight with all his might. Some people were afraid of losing their beauty, so he made one of them scary. At that time, the bald man called the girl ugly, and she started bullying him. The protagonist suggested that it was affecting him too. The old man explained that everything that is bad for people is experience points for them. The old man explained that like humans they too strive to complete the mission, only the old man can let the players fail the mission. The old man explained that if the weeper kills the main character he will get his points and level up. The old man said that running such a business was very profitable. The old man was very curious about what was inside the protagonist, namely what it was that scared the weeper so much. The guy said that since the man was so curious he could tell. The old man realized that it was not a secret, and he was also curious. He loaded the gun talking about a saying from his world. He gave the kid the gun and said the further into the forest, the more wood. He said goodbye to the kid. A shot was fired, but the old man's face was very surprised, so the protagonist blocked the bullet with an attachment received from his lazy. The protagonist also decided to add some words. He said that the old man should never have thought that the enemy has only one trump card up his sleeve. A huge wind came up, and the enemy didn't realize what was happening. A huge source of air came from the hero. He told the ferocious creature to get out, but he got a notification that the user he called was busy and couldn't answer. The protagonist started yelling at the console because he believed the girl's words that he could rely on her. The old man calmed down, because the hero's trump card did not work. Many armed puppets went to attack the hero. Behind him, one of the puppets was ready to cut off the guy's head, but at one moment all the puppets collapsed, which surprised the old man very much. The protagonist held a pillow above him by Ms. Laziness herself. He was upset that the girl did not come, for the reason that she was on her lunch break. The enemy said that the guy surprised him, and was determined to deal with him with his own hands. The hero ordered the pillow to take care of the old man, and it went towards the enemy. The old man used a huge number of threads, and the pillow was approaching the enemy at great speed. The attacks collided, and the enemy was losing, which was very surprising. The pillow broke through the enemy's attack and dealt damage to him. He began to fly backwards at a great speed under the pressure of the pillow. The threads from the child were gone. The hero's seat was also freed from its restraints. The kid picked up his weapon and stood up, calling the pillow deadly. The console began to disappear, but the hero was not surprised, because it was a disposable item. The protagonist said it was worth it, and now it was time for him to deal with another issue. The frightened child hid behind the chair. The protagonist looked at him as strands appeared behind his back. With a precise movement of his blade, he was able to sever one of the strands, but was immediately overtaken by many others. Though the hero tried to dodge and block the attacks, some went through him and did damage. The guy decided to retreat, but the strands followed him. The protagonist couldn't understand how the old man survived. The old man was in a cocoon. He said that he used a natural disaster attack, also reminded of the hero's words about not forgetting that enemies can have more than one trump card. The threads spread throughout the city. They enveloped the fat monster. The girl who was nearby was in shock, because it felt as if the monster was about to explode. At that time, the girl who attacked the bald man sharply fell right in front of his feet. Behind his back, the man saw a huge number of threads. The threads started grabbing the child, who was trying his best to escape. The old man said that he could have refused to raise his level, but he didn't hold back. The hero asked if the game was worth the candle. The old man said that the kid deprived his business of profit, and he should thank him properly. Suddenly a figure flew in through the window. The figure was a girl who had lost her child. She noticed her child on the old man's chest and started screaming in pain. She attacked the enemy with a knife, but he recognized the escaped puppet. The girl broke through the threads and managed to get to her child. She grabbed and ripped the child from the shackles of threads. The mother threw her daughter away to keep her safe, and her body was pierced by the threads. The protagonist assumed that the baby was actually Xiao Xiao. The protagonist recognized the girl and was surprised to see her. The protagonist decided to fulfill the order urgently, because the girl would not last long. The hero turned to the kid and asked if it was true that he had always dreamed of seeing a smile. Without waiting for an answer, the hero took his sword and began to cut his cheeks. The child watched carefully as the hero carved a smile on his face. The order was successfully completed. The old man, on the other hand, spoke of anger completely taking over the sad puppet. He said that the recklessness of the girl means nothing to him, and with all his might threw the monster, from which so at a great speed sealed into the wall. He said he was a manager, so as long as that was the case, he could handle a creature of any complexity. Recovering, the enemy said that his only goal was a new batch of customers, and that now it was the hero's turn to get what he deserved. The old man lit up with anticipation. He told all the men to show what they could do. He smiled at the moment a notification popped up that another store manager had shown up. The enemy was furious and didn't realize who had succeeded. At the same time, the hero, who sat on the throne, apologized to his colleague. He asked the old man if he wanted to retire enough. The enemy admitted that he had underestimated the guy, but the attacker noticed that the hero's level was far below his, and the guy would never defeat him. The attack practically flew at the hero, the enemy was hoping to kill the guy and become the sole manager again. The protagonist smiled and said that if he died, it would really be like that. A monster began to fall from the top of the building under the words of the hero that they should coordinate with the customers first. The monster fell on an attack directed by the enemy at the hero. The old man said that such a level was not enough to win. Something flew at the monster, and it was using a third-level berserk technique. It was enraged and intended to attack the old man. The enemy's thread suddenly broke and control was lost. The fatty grabbed a strand of threads and pulled with all his might, causing the enemy to fly back towards the monster. As soon as the old man was at the right distance, the fat man struck the enemy's jaw. From such a blow, the old man instantly flew away, punching through all the buildings and walls that were in the path of flight. At that time, the girl suggested that the protagonist should make friends. The guy liked the idea. He said it wasn't bad. The old man was angry, as there were newcomers against him. Suddenly, the enemy was hugged from behind by the monster girl. She also noticed that everything was fine before the manager appeared. She had no intention of obeying the enemy anymore. The bald man was approaching the common enemy. The girl said that the bald man was now using his forbidden technique. She very strongly advised the guy to close his eyes. The old man asked what the bald man was going to do. He admitted that he has the ability to strengthen muscles. The bald man asked the old man to guess the strongest muscle in the human body. The old man seemed to guess. Right, it was the skill of the magic tongue. The girl started, for the man's tongue was incredible. The old man was gripped by panic. He thought quite scary. In fact, the bald man used his tongue to chop the old man into pieces. The hero and the girl from such a sight were shocked. The man did terrible things to the old man, which even the hero did not leave indifferent. The girl said that although it looks silly, in fact one movement is 7 deadly cuts. The protagonist asked what the 7 deadly cuts meant. It's a technique that can deal 70% damage to an opponent's health. It's impossible to dodge, and the damage is terrifying. What the man was about to use was a final technique that could only be used once. He extended his tongue and hit the old man with it. The girl said that she would never want to become the bald man's enemy. The girl suggested that the hero should become friends and not mess with the bald man anymore. They became friends through this system, and the girl thought the guy was pretty cool. She asked what was on the hero's face, and he admitted that he wanted to make the kids smile happily. At the time, the girl was in a dying state. The kid walked over and asked her to get up. He started asking who the woman was and why she saved him. He started asking about his mom. The girl put her hand on the child's face and said that the girl had grown up a lot. The child smiled and the woman cried. She remembered Xiao Xiao. She expressed her joy that her daughter had returned. The girl started to run to her mom to give her a big hug. The family members hugged each other, and the girl was happy that she had finally found her child. The girl watching this scene cried as she was incredibly touched. Baldy said that people shouldn't cry around the hero. The girl knew this very well, but she didn't even realize she had feelings. She said that the hero was strong and expressed her desire to meet the guys in the future. Baldy said that they would meet again in the main city. The protagonist said goodbye to them and said see you later. The guys disappeared. After waiting for a while, the protagonist finally breathed a sigh of relief. The old man's body was lying there, and all the monsters noticed that he was surprisingly able to survive. The enemy asked why the hero didn't leave even though his mission was accomplished. The protagonist said that he was not for going through a sad ordeal. He was looking for some meaning in life. The protagonist knew that there was another one hiding behind the scenes, so he wanted to deal with him too. Eventually, after these words, the secret mission began. The old man said that the hero was really different from the others. The main enemy sat on the throne and asked why. The protagonist assumed that the enemy knew him well. He also said the hero was too vain to die. The enemy said he knew all the tricks up the hero's sleeve. He started talking about the hero's abilities, and the hero agreed. Even his personal ability, the enemy knew all about it. The enemy said he had been following the hero since the beginning of the trial. The protagonist apologized, though his tastes are interesting, but he is not attracted to puppets. The enemy was offended by such a joke. He said that the hero's trick will not work and he will keep his cool. Suddenly the enemy's face was pierced by a hand. It was a girl who told him to stop talking. The protagonist explained that it wasn't a real body. The hero pointed at the old man and said that it was also a puppet. Another one of the puppets started talking and let the guy for his sharp mind. The protagonist assumed that this was the main body of the enemy. The guy said that in the end the enemy would be ruined by his greed. All the broken puppets rose from their feet. The fat man headed for the attack, but this time the battle wasn't so easy. The girl also realized that the puppets had become stronger. A lot of puppets attacked the monster, who was getting by, and Fat very difficult but coped. Mom also kept up with the monsters and chopped enemy puppets. The enemy felt that the hero has an evil purpose, so terrible that it is difficult for him to imagine. The enemy offered the guy to cooperate. The protagonist didn't really want to become a puppet. The enemy said that if the hero gave up his body, they would become a perfect being. The protagonist said that the enemy was right and asked who told him that he didn't know how to use his evil essence. Lightning struck the city. The players were running away from the monster and asking for help. They didn't know how long they had to run away, but they did it to survive. Suddenly a flying man caught the men's attention. He had white as snow hair, and incredibly strong aura. The hero completely transformed. The enemy could not believe his eyes, because the hero was a traveler and could not use this power. But the hero swung his sword, and with a nonchalant face struck the strongest blow, which began to destroy everything around him. At that time in the hated world was sleeping Miss Laziness. Suddenly, she began to worry about something and woke up, as she felt the aura of insane level. A huge crater had formed where the hero had hit. The mother tried to save her baby, and was covered in burns. She picked up her baby and asked him to get up. The other man managed to survive under the rubble. The monster girl thought she was going to die too, but she survived. They looked at the fire and thought about how strong the main character was. Suddenly the guys looked up, where they saw Mrs. Laziness. She ordered the guys to explain everything that happened here. The girl decided to go to the human world to the hero since he confused her. The guys were happy that they managed to survive. The girl was stopped by her mother, who ran to her and knelt down to beg her to save her child. She banged her head on the ground and begged to save Xiao Xiao. The girl explained that the source of the child's life was resentment, but since she was gone, he would soon disappear. The mother couldn't believe it, for she had just found her child. The mother was desperate, and she took out a soul lantern that could steal people's souls. As she left, the girl said that if she had made up her mind, the sacrifice would be great. The girl disappeared, leaving the mother and her child alone. She knelt and cried in front of the girl. She began to use the power of the artifact. They took human form, and the mother told the child about her. As she did so, she also told about the girl's doll. The mother hugged her girl and started to disappear. Then the child started to wake up. She woke up and looked around, not realizing where she was. Looking straight, she saw her doll and was very happy. The protagonist returned to the real world. He did not realize what had just happened. After the hero killed the enemy, he immediately received a notification that he completed the task, and then lost consciousness and did not even have time to see the reward. In the door to the guy began to knock. The knock was really loud, and the hero asked who in his mind would be so loud knocking in the hospital. Monsters burst into the room. The hero could not understand what they forgot in the real world and assumed that he just moved. The protagonist assumed that the drug hadn't worn off and it was an illusion, and since it was an illusion, it could just be ignored. The monster attacked the protagonist and he realized. He quickly dodged, but his cheek was hit and bled. The protagonist felt pain and was incredibly surprised that the monsters came to him. At the same time, the nurses stood near the hero and did not understand what was wrong with him. They asked if all is well, but the protagonist did not answer them anything. The girls assumed that the guy went crazy, and one of them reached out to the hero to touch him. The protagonist saw a monster that tried to attack. He couldn't understand if it was a hallucination or not, so he hesitated. Eventually, the protagonist decided to jump over the monsters and walk into their backs. He started running away from the hospital, half screaming to the girl. They were going to notify the duty officer, since the hero was bad. The guy ran with all his might, but suddenly something unusual appeared in front of him, which pierced his leg. The hero found himself pressed against the wall. He felt real pain, and it seemed that he had no way out. He opened the inventory. At that time, actually a hospital employee reported that the patient was found. He said that the patient was frightened at the sight of him and slipped and fell. The man asked the protagonist to calm down and said that he would take him to the treatment room. The protagonist started to run away, and the man ran after him. The boy jumped out of a window in an attempt to get out of the chase. At the time, the kids were saying goodbye to their brother, who was going to the game. He said he was going to be rich soon and would help the kids. He sat down and started stroking the children, telling them to behave normally. One of the children pointed to a spot and told everyone to look. On that spot was a hero who was moving towards them. The children asked what was wrong with the hero and why he was in hospital clothes. At that time, the main character ordered everyone to die. The friend told the children to run away, and due to his speed, he was able to save them. He took a scroll and ordered the kids to run away immediately. The scroll in the guy's hands could forcibly teleport a target 30 meters away. The guy told the kids not to worry about him. At the same time, the hero looked incredibly creepy. It was as if Satan himself had descended to earth. The guy was in despair and had already changed with his demise. The hero raised his hand to strike, and the guy fell to his knees and started talking about how it was his friend. The protagonist ordered his friend to run away. He was holding himself back to give the guy time to escape. Control was lost and making a scary face. The protagonist struck with terrible force. The boy tried to run away, but it seemed that this attack would definitely reach him. The children were very worried about their brother. A girl came to the scene and stopped this terrible attack. The boy found himself enveloped in smoke. He couldn't understand what had happened and looked closer and saw another monster. The girl called the hero very unusual because he not only withstood this force, but also for a second was able to regain control. She said it was not what she expected from the guy she had plans for. The girl said she didn't give the guy a tracking demon for nothing. She used an ability that caused frost all around. Snow started to appear everywhere, and the kids started to fall asleep. After a small amount of time, they fell asleep. At that time, the main character asked, "Was it all the work of laziness?" The girl apologized and said she didn't mean to set the hero up. The girl didn't expect that the hero could awaken his true power. The guy finally said that he was waiting for the girl and demanded all explanations. The girl said she would tell everything. Since the guy had made a real mess, she had to deal with the consequences first. The kids were asleep, and the guy was thinking about how incredible the girl's abilities were. He looked at the special effects created by her, and was just shocked. It seemed as if he was in a completely different world. A man appeared behind the boy's back and apologized for the disturbance. He passed by and headed towards the girl. The boy couldn't understand how this man was in this place. He asked the queen for what reason she decided to visit from the humble world. She said that the night guards were boring people because they cast the same spells. He apologized and reminded her that by contract a girl could not come to their world without permission. She turned to the man and asked what he would do since she was here. He said there was nothing he could do to the girl, but he promised to fight if the girl suddenly decided to invade the mortal world. He said he would lose either way. The girl called the night guards real suicidal. She pointed at the hero and said she didn't come to fight, but because of him. The man didn't understand what the girl was talking about, because the hero was at entry level. He said that with this level, he is not different from other recruits. The girl expressed surprise that the man could not see the essence of the hero. He thought for a moment and approached the guy and put his finger to his head. He was incredibly surprised and didn't realize what it was. He ordered his men to come to him immediately. They instantly disappeared and found themselves near the man. They couldn't believe that they could see a living source of evil. The man asked who the main character was. The girl told him that the hero had awakened his mad level power and caused her some trouble. They couldn't believe that the guy was able to awaken his insane level power. One of the men asked if the girl's words were true. She said that if they didn't believe her, she would take the hero. But the men immediately started talking about how the hero belonged to their world, and the girl couldn't take him away. She didn't understand why the guys started talking about that. The man said that if the girl took the hero, he would be very angry. That brought a smile to Lazy's face, and she asked if the man could keep the guy. She asked if the guys knew what would happen to the man who induced the source of evil. The man started to take off his helmet, saying that finally people have the source of evil, and they will lay down their lives to protect the hero. The girl decided to leave the protagonist with the guys for a while. They began to take care of the hero, and the girl advised them to hurry up, because the testing will begin soon. The man did not understand why so quickly, because people can hardly overcome the test of the brutal level. The girl said that the human star system was going out, so when all the stars went out, would there be any point in testing? The man said he knew that, and asked the girl to leave their world. She said she would leave now, and approached the hero. She kissed him on the forehead, which confused the man who didn't realize what it was. She also said she gave the guy reinforcement. The men pretended it was normal, and the girl left. One of the men asked about the reinforcement not being transmitted through the mouth, but their commander ordered them to shut up. At the time, a friend was hiding behind a wall. He had no way of imagining that the protagonist would almost kill him. He knew that the hero did it unintentionally, but still he had no idea what happened to the guy. The hero's friend was approached by a man who scared him. The man promised to make the guy much stronger for money. He asked him to pretend no one saw him. He also said that it will not go like that, and they need to start, as testing is coming up. The hero's friend started to be dragged forcibly to training. Elsewhere there was a board with crossed-out portraits hanging on it. It was a girl who had befriended the hero. She was very angry since the protagonist wasn't responding to her messages. She intended to kill the hero next time for this. She got a call on her phone from her uncle, whom she called a beggar, which made him mad. The girl said that if it was nothing important she would hang up, but the uncle said he had an important assignment. Although the girl said she was busy, but when she heard about the big reward she couldn't help herself. At that time, the children were in the Sacred Heart Hospital. The doctor asked if the child was awake. The doctor introduced himself and said that the boy had been here before. The boy waved in agreement, and the man said he would be safe. When asked if the doctor had any results, he said that the other side was erasing memories, and all to no avail. There was a war of enormous proportions where all sorts of monsters were fighting. People decided not to fight the monsters, but to kill the devil himself, but it was enough for him to snap his fingers to exterminate his enemies. He set himself up as the source of true evil. He sent the 7 deadly sins to other worlds, and said he would give them all the punishment of heaven. At that time, the hero heard a voice telling him to wake up. He found himself in a place unknown to him. He heard voices that said to seal the demon for a while. He saw a sloth that explained that it was the memories of the past owners of the source of evil. It had left a part of its soul in the protagonist. The protagonist asked about the world situation, and she showed a picture of a girl. The protagonist was tied up. The girl asked her uncle if he had lost his mind. The uncle asked if the girl had heard that the source of evil had awakened. The girl had heard, but she didn't know that her friend would be that person. The girl asked who the blonde guy was. The friend sat on the floor and was afraid to say anything. He smiled and wanted to introduce himself, but the girl pointed a gun at him and said she didn't remember the guy. She shot him and said he shouldn't poke his nose in other people's business. The uncle said the girl couldn't kill the guy. He caught the bullet with his hands, which scared his friend incredibly badly. The girl asked why she couldn't do it and recalled how her master died. At that time, the uncle told that she do, and Shangshan had given up snakes to fight the source of evil in the past. The uncle told that one that survived was injured. The girl asked why, then the uncle wanted to protect the hero. She couldn't understand why with all the problems they continue to worship the awakened source. The friend said that the hero is not like the previous one and asked why kill him. The girl said that 90% of those who awaken the source die and the other 10% lose their humanity. Now the friend understood why the hero was like that. The uncle said that if someone decided he was worthy of the source, he should kill him immediately. This curse is not clear when it appeared. It is only known that people who received it either die or go crazy and turns into monsters. The girl asked how the guy would do when faced with such a person. He didn't know what to say. The protagonist watching this said that he should just get rid of the problem before it turns into a disaster. The girl asked if the protagonist agreed. The uncle explained that it is very hard for humans to compete with beings from other worlds. For humans, the ferocious level was the limit, so when they faced enemies, they always lost. The man said that the source of evil changed everything. It first appeared when the aliens invaded their lands, and they almost lost. That man not only passed a brutal level, but turned the tide of the battle. Eventually both sides decided that conflict was pointless, and since then the source of evil has been used to bring victory or defeat in battles. The master had never told the girl about it, and she found it hard to believe. The man said it was a secret, and once the knowledge of the source of evil was absorbed, it was a real disaster. The girl suggested that it didn't make much sense. The girl said that with the uncle's way of speaking he would say something stupid. The girl said that at that time, there were guys capable of feats. The uncle said that the hero should be saved even if he becomes a monster in the future. The voice of the hero's friend was heard, who said that it was not worth worrying too much. He said that he had heard a lot and was already confused. He said that he saw the hero in a fit of madness, and thanks to his good soul, he was able to survive. For that reason the boy thought the hero would not be consumed. The uncle asked if the hero could have awakened on his own, and the guy said he did. The uncle said it was simply impossible, since no source of evil was capable of it. The guy said they could ask the lazy girl about it, since she had seen it too. The man decided to wake up the hero as soon as possible. Something glowing appeared in the guy's hands. It was an amulet of fate replacement. Thanks to this, it was possible to abandon the task. The guy was very surprised as this thing was really good. The man explained that only a constant increase in spiritual power could save the hero. The man said that if the hero would take part in the trial, the guy would have to go with him to the cruel level trial. The guy was promised to give the amulet if it would help him. Everyone stood around the hero. The guy was very afraid and asked if they would protect him if he entered. He also asked if he could leave, which was starting to piss off his uncle. When he tried to ask another question, he got hit in the head. The man who hit the guy said that he was given so many artifacts that if he was killed with them, it would be even better. The guy was worried because he had been given a lot of artifacts, but the girl had been given nothing at all. He asked where they could find such a brave man who doesn't ask for anything in return. Also the girl who had just received 1 nice yuan on her account. The uncle said he had transferred the reward. The guy was shocked by such a thing, and they together with the girl and the hero began to move. A moment later they were no longer in the room. The man called the boy young and energetic. The uncle, on the other hand, assumed that the man valued them. He was talking about the artifacts, because he wouldn't even let him look at them. The man said the boy would die anyway, but the girl could handle it. The man said it would be very sad if he left nothing behind when he died. The uncle said the kid is weak, and even if they start now, there won't be enough time. The man said he and the boy look alike, so he's waiting to see who he grows into. The kid's mission was to pet the cat, which angered him. He was confronted by the huge lion in question. The monster immediately pounced on the guy, and the guy started running away calling for help. The guy was cornered, and it seemed to be the end of him. He started to panic, and his hands were in different sides. Randomly the guy pressed a button, then got information about the monster, and what to do with it to complete the task. The tiger was heading straight for its prey, and the guy was just wondering where his companions were. At the same time, the girl met her monster, namely a huge red fish that wanted to eat everything that had a spherical shape. The fish's gaze went mad. It turned its attention to the girl's breasts, while she prayed that the docs would not come true. The fish pounced right on the girl. At that time the protagonist himself became the object of research. He looked into the camera and asked if there was someone outside. The guy offered to talk because he just woke up. The protagonist realized that no one would come to him. The protagonist realized that the other party didn't want to talk to him, but someone was definitely watching. The protagonist needed to escape from the disaster association. The protagonist remembered that the manager had mentioned this organization. The guy was glad for the opportunity to prove himself. He wanted the opponents not to underestimate him. The system notified the protagonist that he would now receive the rewards for the past challenge. The protagonist received a purple and 2 blue sunbooks and increased his level to 5. The system's last phrase was the reason for the game. Hey! Therefore, the guy was angry. The protagonist decided to turn a blind eye to it, at least because of the good rewards he received. The protagonist should have paid more attention to physical strength. The protagonist finally got a title, namely favorable. If the hero is attacked, there is a chance of getting a debuff. At that time the doors were opening. 2 soldiers appeared on the other side. They asked for the hero's help in an experiment. The guy asked what the experiment was, but they started to use physical force on him. The protagonist asked to treat him better. The enemy began to get angry because the hero requires special treatment. The other man said not to talk to the offender. They began to lead the hero, just in case the police had him in their sights. There were horrible experiments going on where people's lives were not valued. Doctors were testing horrible things on living people. They were testing indicators of evil and many other things. The main character called everything quite original. A group of soldiers ran after an escaped prisoner. The protagonist remembered his name, Hair Lip. The soldiers hit the protagonist and told him to move faster. The guy put his hand up to the scanner, and the soldiers told the hero to keep going without them. One of the soldiers whispered about how the hero inside would only need to press a button. The guy thanked the policeman. Now the hero had a remote control in his hands. One soldier said he would go to the escapee. The other said yes, sir. The officer said the guy was his confidant, so he'd handle it. He also told the commander not to worry and to trust him. The hero found himself in an obscure cell. The protagonist assumed the man could be trusted. It was announced that the experiment on the hero will soon begin. On the floor was a scary insect in a translucent box. The protagonist asked what kind of experiment it was. The doctor who was the curator of the hero's experiment appeared. She explained that it was a brain snake. which penetrates people's bodies and parasitizes their brains. This insect was taking the best genes, that its offspring were the best, and it was also interested only in smart people. They wanted to see if the insect would have more children if it parasitized in a body with evil abilities. The girl thanked the hero for his cooperation. There was a sound at the door. A military man came to the girl, who reported that he had completed the task given by the girl. She asked what happened to prisoner 003. He reported that the detention team did not correctly calculate the strength of the prisoner because he woke up earlier. The girl asked not to be disturbed, as a very important experiment was at stake. The soldier had a knife in his hands, and the doctor smiled and asked the soldier a question. She asked how Judas died, right before the soldier stabbed him. Other soldiers burst into the room and pointed guns at the guy. He asked how the girl was able to expose him. The girl said that everyone comes in and says a special code that only he and the girl know. The girl asked about the 100 this man 003 entered besides the awakening injection. He smiled as that part of the plan was revealed as well. There was a huge explosion on the monitor. It was announced that the experiment room was full of explosives, so the hero could get out. The guy made a joke about it. The girl asked the man to tell her name, and he made a pose and introduced himself as Ning Phantom. The soldiers opened fire on the man. After not firing for a while, the guy's body looked like a sieve. Ning Phantom ordered that Judas' family be notified and compensation be paid. One of the soldiers asked if they should arrest 001. The girl said that this is when the real experiment begins, so they should lock all the doors. The soldiers didn't understand what the girl was saying. The girl said that if they could study the hero for the world it would be a breakthrough. The man said that there were many of them, but the girl asked what the purpose of the disaster association was. The soldier stood up and said that he was the truth. Others continued that truth lives forever. This person was told by the system that because of the skill, he would become a spectator. If the guys won, he would lose nothing, but if they lost, he would also lose everything. This was Ning Feng Top 10 Best Travelers Ability Curator. He had originally planned to kill the boss alone, but he was unable to do so. The guy was lucky with the ability, and he dying might not lose anything. He watched the guy who was running away from the lion and called him a weakling. He appreciated the girl at the time, but she could have handled it faster. Speaking of the hero, he decided that he didn't deserve his status. Suddenly his face changed. The protagonist did not run away, but caught an insect. The guy started swearing at the bug. The observer was shocked by this, but what happened next was that the hero started to bring the insect closer to his mouth to eat it. It started to succeed and tried to get out. At the time, the observer assumed that the hero had a real problem with his head. The guy at the time was talking to the insect about how it can't stand stupid people. The hero tried to put it in his mouth again, and this time he succeeded, and it ate the brain-eating insect. The watcher was in complete shock, calling the hero an idiot. He also called the guy psychotic and inadequate. The protagonist got a new ability, tentacles. From his back began to appear tentacles, which he could freely control. Due to the strong stability of the protagonist's brain, the worm couldn't control him. The observer was completely shocked by what he saw. At that time, the military had already arrived on the scene and was determined to apprehend the hero. The protagonist was very happy. He immediately rushed to his opponents. Enemies began to shoot at the guy, but he thanks to his new ability to easily dodge bullets. Finding himself right next to the soldiers, the hero knocked out one of them, and a moment later the second enemy was neutralized. He stuck one of the soldiers right into the wall with his tentacle. The soldiers asked the doctor what they should do, and she simply said to take notes. She said that when the evil threshold is raised, the body's impaired cognitive judgment comes out. The protagonist was glad he finally found the strength to defend himself. The guy asked if the thing could retract. The protagonist started threatening the tentacles, saying he wouldn't let it out if it didn't hide. This helped and the protagonist's back was clear again. At that time the girl was fighting the monster fish. She easily dodged the monster's lunges. Once on the enemy's back, the girl pointed her weapon at the fish, and saw a note where she was asked to say a phrase. When the girl didn't understand the phrase, the system said that the password had been activated, and an earth product appeared on the ground. The girl called the guy a vigilante. The fish tried to attack the girl, but she was ready to shoot. The fish pounced on the planet Earth, as it had the shape of a ball, but not being able to grab it flew out of the room. The guy asked to speak the password more thankfully next time, but the girl broke the camera he was speaking through and took it into her inventory, as she assumed it was worth a lot. The watcher was just angry, but still calmed down. He said that the girl's power was great enough. While the hero's friend was running away from the animal, the watcher asked if he needed help, and he said of course. A hole appeared in the ceiling, and a capsule fell out. It crashed right in front of the beast, and there was an explosion. The lion was immobilized, but the guy only had 10 seconds to kill it. The hero's friend got down, and took his ear in his hands, and headed for the monster. He was approaching the fierce beast, and the beast remembered how he was a kitten, who was abused and threw stones at him. Some people mocked and argued whether they could kill the animal. Then the poor animal was experimented on, and then it became strong. The beast stood in front of the hero's friend, but he still could not overcome himself and kill it. It began to bleed. The beast was without a scratch. The guy wounded his own hand, and said that the look of the beast resembled a kitten abandoned near the shelter. He poured his blood into the beast's mouth, and said that the kitten had had enough, as it could die if he continued. The lion licked the guy's blood off the floor. The task of petting the kitten was completed. The guy decided to run, as he had already done the job. Suddenly a roar was heard behind him. It was a tiger, which was ready to jump on the guy. He already thought that he was finished as the tiger began to turn into a small kitten and appeared on the guy's shoulder. Turns out the beast decided to go with the guy. The guy was talking to his new animal. At the time, the military was firing at one man who was nothing to bullets. He instantly disappeared and found himself right in front of the enemy, took him by the shoulders. The man looked very mad. The enemy begged to let him go, but the man just ripped his eyes out. He said that out of 50 pieces, he only collected 2 eyes. The soldiers started to run away as they were getting scared. One of the soldiers tried to open the doors. The other soldier was in a panic, as there was no way they could kill the man. The crazy old man was originally kept in a secret vault. He also said it was time for him to differentiate himself a bit. The soldiers said that the top secret vault could only be opened by people higher up. The soldier assumed they'd just been abandoned. The soldiers' morale was at 0. They were just prepared to die. The guys were approached by the captain, who ordered the guys to get up and take up arms. He ordered the guys to save themselves while he distracted the old man. The soldiers didn't want the captain to die, so he ordered them to shut up and save themselves. He put the card to the door and finally said that as their captain, he was obliged to do so. In the corridor lay a huge number of corpses. Most of the soldiers had punctured bellies. The protagonist assumed that many monsters had broken free. The guy paid attention to one of the corpses. There was an old man lying there. Looking closely, the hero noticed that the man was alive. The hero said that he was very hungry, but the unkilled guys are his favorite. The doctor began to beg that he was not eaten. The protagonist said that the desire is not enough to stop him. The man promised the guy that he would help him get out. The hero gave the old man some advice, namely, if he has useful information about it, should be told immediately. The guy grabbed the doctor and ordered him to tell him everything. Disaster Association is engaged in the search for the truth and is absolutely everywhere. In front of the branch has an incredibly important task. They must identify the judges of extreme evil. They were constantly catching creatures for their research. A little while later they realized that they needed test subjects with large amounts of evil. They were afraid of strong creatures, but recently a case came up where two fierce level creatures were fighting. The battle site was completely destroyed, and the creatures were badly wounded. On the old man's orders, the creature was captured. The result was supposed to come yesterday, but later a girl showed up and said she had found an even bigger sample of evil. No matter how much the doctor objected, she wouldn't listen to him at all. The old man hated the girl and promised her revenge. The protagonist said he understood the old man. The doctor said he knew a secret path. If the hero would help him, he would lead him away. The hero asked if they could subdue the creature, and the doctor said yes. The boy was overjoyed at the news and told the doctor to guide him. The hare's lip was right on course, but the doctor said he couldn't go through. The madman found the elixir of decomposition and lost his head. The hero said the shape was very similar to that of their people. The one said, "Look at this man, he looked terrible. It was the price for the lives of several people." The monster Pops Ouch attacked the hero, but was thwarted by the force field. Toth kept pounding, and eventually cracks appeared there. The boy asked about the moment where it was said that the man wanted to protect his people. The doctor said they were just pawns, cannon fodder. The doctor asked if the protagonist could handle the enemy. The protagonist said he could definitely handle it and asked him to open the doors. The door of the cell started to open, the enemy started to come out of the cell, and immediately pounced on the hero. The guy easily dodged. The enemy paid attention to it with a delay, and a bullet flew right over his head. It was a girl who asked if the hero needed help. The doctor hid around the corner thinking that these were dangerous people, and he needed to stay away from them. The doctor was glad his corner was safe, and was greeted by a friend of the hero, who was also hiding from danger. The beast on the guy's shoulder looks angry, which scared the doctor, as he even recognized the number of the object. At that time the girl activated her ability, the cartridge flew towards the enemy, and after a moment, there was an explosion. It didn't work on the enemy, and he headed to attack. The girl got a little worried, as the enemy was not weak, but the hero wrapped his ability around her, and saved her from the man's blow. The girl asked what it was, and the hero called it a sling. The girl said the thing was strong enough, and made up marks on her. The hero asked the girl about skills with increased damage. The hero picked up the girl and pointed it directly at the enemy. The girl started calling the hero's name as he pointed her right into the fight. The enemy grabbed the girl right by the throat and wanted to strike with his hand, but then came the hero, who with a precise blow released the girl and cut the leg of the enemy. The girl used a grenade and shoved it right into the man's mouth. The hero used the new putties to close his mouth. The man exploded from the inside out. Smoke started coming out of his mouth, and he collapsed as all life came out of his body. The girl said the guy overdid it. The hero said it was a response to the shot the girl wanted to kill him with. She was surprised at what the hero recognized. The guy also said that the man was actually still alive. He asked the hero to listen to him. They were in the process of replicating the disaster the travelers were supposed to come to. The soldiers were discussing what might be waiting for them. The commander told them not to talk, but to talk. They said they had no chance of surviving, and there was no point in preparing. One of the soldiers asked what they had to do to get out alive. The soldiers looked at each other, and one of them decided to say he wanted to leave. The guys started talking about their dreams. The captain for this reason promised to keep the guys alive. He promised to give the guys a great vacation. The captain said that thanks to the guy, he came to his senses, but will not last long. The hero said to say what the man wanted from him. The man began to beg to let his guys go. They do not want to fight, and are under the pressure of noise. The man was told that if he reveals any more important information, he will be killed. He said he was already dead, and not afraid of anyone. The man was wrapped in the hero's ropes. He dragged him behind him, and the girl asked him what he was doing. He also dragged the man to the door. He said that if someone interferes strongly, he will not stand for it. The hero also reminded him how to behave when asking for something. The man was a little surprised. After a while, he gave the hero everything he had. The guy said that it was not bad and asked the man to continue. He asked if the hero could fulfill his request. He said no, and the man was angry. The hero threw him some pills. It turned out to be a rare panacea item that could save the man. The hero said the man would save his people. The hero asked for information on what their mission was. The man didn't understand what the question was, but the hero told him to say what he knew. He told the guy to listen carefully. At that time, the doctor was stymied by the beast. The guy asked if the girl had seen this before, but she hadn't. The hero returned his friends and said they had to go. The main character told them that he had an idea. At that time the grandfather was lying on the ground. He woke up and began to shake off the dust, saying that peace and light are not only pain and killing. Already walking, he said that this is worldly wisdom. The doctor led the boys to object number 003. He confessed that if it wasn't for the object's injury, they would never have been able to catch it. The doctor said that even now, she was very dangerous. The girl was sitting in the center of the room. She was armless, and taunting the soldier, she kicked him and laughed at the fact that he was in pain. The doctor said he injected the girl with the strongest decomposition elixir, but nothing happened. The doctor couldn't understand why his subject didn't conform. The hero said that the doctor would let his emotions out later, and he apologized for being overexcited. The doctor said that the girl ran away when the settings were sleeping, and they just need to do the settings again. The hero's friend said that the doctor was sending them to their deaths. The doctor said he would give the equipment that would help the guys, and there was no other way. The protagonist ordered the girl to stay and watch the doctor. The friend asked what to do, and the hero said that they are like in the story about father and son, who together are able to roll mountains. The hero caught the friend behind him. He prechukal, but he did not come out well. The girl kept the doctor at gunpoint, and he said he wouldn't do anything stupid. He said he wanted to get out as soon as possible. The main character and his friend were already near the girl. The friend asked the hero what they were going to do, and he explained that the friend was about to go over there, and began to envelop him with his entanglements. The hero threw his friend right towards the girl. He fell right near her feet. Looking up, the guy saw that the monster was getting up. The protagonist asked how Miss Soft Scarlet Lips was feeling. She recognized the protagonist, and instantly went on the attack. The hero used the skill of the main evil. The system asked him to find a creature that is good to him, and then the call was successful, and from the belly of the guy crawled out of the girl. She asked why the first thing she sees is some crazy girl. The girl asked if the hero had summoned her, and he was surprised as the girl looked completely different. The girl said she would protect the hero, and he shouldn't worry. The hero warned that the enemy is strong, but the girl was confident, but not until she flew away from one blow. The hero asked if the girl was alive. She, on the other hand, didn't realize what was going on, and asked the level of the enemy. At that time, Miss Lips was already ready to attack the girl. The little girl was able to block the blow this time, but her sword began to crack as the enemy began to strike many blows. The protagonist also intervened in the battle, and saved the companion from the featherless attacks. The hero asked the girl to stall for time for him. At that time, the guy was near the controller. He was ordered to press the red button. He pondered something, and was told to wish it faster. It turned out that a friend of the hero had planted a bomb in the place. The guy pressed the button and a 30-second timer started. The guy ordered the doctor to give him the key, because otherwise his toy was finished. The doctor said the toy couldn't be destroyed that easily. The guy laughed and offered to look up information about the thing. The doctor didn't understand, but when he saw that it was a cannon bomb, he was shocked. The girl pointed the gun at the doctor, and he admitted that he had lost. At that time, the hero and the girl fought against Miss Sponge. She attacked the hero with 3 seconds on the timer, and the doctor surrendered. He was thanked for his cooperation. After touching the console, the enemy girl seemed to calm down and fell down. The protagonist stood in front of the lying girl. He asked his companion if she was okay, and she said she was. She said it was a fatal injury, and said goodbye to the protagonist, saying lastly that she was happy to help. The protagonist recognized that the girl was indeed quite busy. The doctor sat on the ground and promised to give the guys anything they asked for. The girl asked to start by telling them how to use the thing. The doctor explained that with a pass, they would be able to open a passage to the upper floors. The girl tried to apply the card, and the emergency exit was opened. The doctor said this is the real way out. He said he wouldn't have been able to surprise the boys without it. The girl found herself surrounded by a barrier. She tried to break through, but was unsuccessful. She assumed there was artificial intelligence in this place. The doctor was pleased that in the end his skills had outstripped the boys. The doctor again repeated what a big shot he was to the hero. He didn't understand what that was about. The doctor also confessed that he had been playing this moment since the first meeting. At the time, the beast growled at the doctor. He tried to break through the doors, but ended up with a bump on his head. The doctor asked, "Hero, do you have any idea how much effort I put into this base?" He started a huge list of things he'd done on that base. The girl realized there was no way she could break through the barrier. Although now she had an idea. The doctor was complaining about things not going according to plan because of the hero. He decided to make 003 and the hero fight each other. The girl woke up from her dream. It was all just to show which project was better. At that time, the hero's friend was wondering if the hero could ride. The guy asked what the doctor was talking about. The doctor said that he was sorry that the girl was crippled, because if she had an arm everything would be different. The doctor ordered the girl to kill the guys. The hero's friend decided to take off right away, but if he left the beast would die. He ran up to the hero and decided to take the fight. The protagonist said that even though he didn't want to, he would fight. The protagonist called for the girl's hand. The hero said that if the doctor wants to see the girl perfect, then so be it. He didn't realize what just happened, and the protagonist threw his hand right to the girl. Her face immediately changed, and the hand being in the air immediately began to attach itself to her body. A moment later her case was completely intact, and she seemed to regain consciousness. After that, a very dense aura covered her. A warning sounded throughout the building that the mark was approaching a critical moment. Containment measures were all but exhausted, so a staff member was asked to intervene. The girl turned to the doctor, and before he could say he didn't have time, he heard the girl tell him to look around. He saw a hologram of the planet Earth, and a fish appeared in that place and ate the doctor. The girl managed to get out, and the siren continued to wail everywhere. The man did not understand what was going on. A female silhouette appeared in front. It was Miss Beautiful Lips. The doctor was glad that 003 came, but his chest was instantly pierced by the girl. Before he could react, a hole appeared in his chest. The system activated self-defense mode, and the girl began to attack with multiple weapons. But there was no way it could hurt this monster. She used her hair, and after a few moments, all the weapons were neutralized. The guys watched from the corner the ferocious level force that went beyond all limits. The guy asked when the girl had time to get out, and she told him to forget the shame. The doctor, on the other hand, said that the girl was perfect. He started shouting joyfully that his subject was the strongest. She cut the fragile body of the old man in one motion, and he began to die with a smile on his face, looking at Ms. Beautiful Lips, calling her perfect. The protagonist said it was a pity that the funding for the project was stopped. The girl instantly twitched towards the hero. Her friends got worried and ran to help, but instantly became speechless when they saw the girl flirting with the hero. She thought that the hero came to her on purpose to surprise her. The guy said he was just stopping by, and she said she understood. The guys couldn't understand what was going on. The hero asked the girl to go with him. She agreed without question. Now the hero was finally going to meet the head doctor.